All right, can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me okay? Testing one, two, three. Okay, you can hear me? Okay. I see I see we have a yes. Okay. So everybody can hear me. All right. Go ahead and get started. We'll wait a few more minutes to see if anyone else wants to jump on. All right, while we're doing that, welcome. I'm Brandon E, your Pharm.D, and welcome to the first live on this channel. First of all, we will go over a little bit about this channel, a little bit about myself. As you may or may not know, I'm a pharmacist, been a pharmacist for about 15 years now. I have experience in the community setting, and the community setting is like your local retail pharmacy, like your local CVS or Walmart or Walgreens. They're the pharmacist that fills your prescription. If you got sick and need like an antibiotic, or you got the flu, you need Tamiflu, you go to your local pharmacy and fill that prescription. And I did that for about, say about 10, 11 years. And then I got some experience in the specialty setting. And in the specialty setting, you deal more with like patients that have like certain chronic diseases like cancer and autoimmune disorders like rheumatoid arthritis and lupus and HIV patients, patients with hepatitis C, and patients that need a little bit more attention and closer monitoring. So have experience in a lot of different areas. So in this live, we're going to go over a few things. So I took a poll a few days ago, and based on the poll, people said they want to talk about lifestyle changes, skincare, and seasonal allergies. So that's what we're going to discuss. We're going to talk about those three things. And on this channel, I mainly focus on lifestyle changes that you can make to treat certain everyday conditions and I guess chronic conditions, and then over-the-counter medicines. Pharmacists are one of the few healthcare providers that get specific training in over-the-counter medicines. And with over-the-counter medicines, you may think that since they're not prescription, you don't have to go to a doctor to get them, that they're perfectly safe, but they still have warnings, precautions, and drug interactions, just like prescriptions. So it's important to take them safely and effectively. Okay. All right. So now we're going to jump right into the first topic. We're going to talk about lifestyle changes. So what is a lifestyle change? A lifestyle change is something you can do to help your health that doesn't necessarily require you taking a medicine. So on this channel, I talk about a lot of lifestyle changes. I talk about drinking water. I talk about getting a good exercise, a lot of exercise. I talk about sleep, eating a good diet with fruits and vegetables, sun exposure. We haven't talked about it as much, but it's also good to have, a good community around you, be it that family, friends, coworkers, to get that love and emotional support. So lifestyle changes are a lot of different things that we kind of group together to help improve our health. Okay. So the first one I'm going to talk about is water. So drinking water is very important. If you think about your body is approximately 70% water. And water does a lot of good things for the body. It helps regulate our temperature. It helps keep our bowels regular. Um, it lubricates our joints. It helps in proper kidney function. It helps with proper electrolyte balances within our bodies. It it does a lot of great things. So it's important to drink water. And if you drink a lot of water, it can prevent or mitigate a lot of everyday conditions. And so with water, a lot of times, so when I was in pharmacy school, um, we learned that For example, if you want to treat a common condition, like let's say constipation, first they would teach us the lifestyle changes that you can make. So like if you're constipated, one thing you can do to help combat that is to drink water. So if you're dehydrated, you can have hard, dry stool. So if you're straining, when you use the bathroom and you're not drinking enough water, that could be a solution to the problem. So how much water should you drink? So as I mentioned earlier, water is about 70% of our bodies are water. So based on that, you should drink water as a percentage of your body weight. Now, there was an old recommendation that you should drink 8 cups a day. And I think that's about how much water the average adult loses per day. So if you think about water, you lose it in many ways. You may lose it during sweating, when you sleep or exercise or doing some type of physical activity. When you breathe, you're losing water. And then when you urinate. So based on that, I think you lose about 2.5 liters a day, the average person, or about 8 cups a day. So I think that's where that recommendation came from. But again, I think it's better to drink water as a percentage of your body weight. So it's good to drink about half of your body weight in ounces. So let's say you weigh 150 pounds, then you should drink about 75 ounces of water per day. And again, the good thing about water is it does a lot of good things. Like I said, it can regulate your body temperature, can prevent constipation. It can also help with fatigue. If you're dehydrated, if you think about it, just about every cell in your body has water. So if you're dehydrated and you're not drinking enough water, you may feel fatigue. Um, so that's one thing you want to do, water. So if anyone has any questions, while I'm going through this, let me know in the comments and we'll be happy to answer those. So the first lifestyle change you talk about is drink enough water. Again, half of your body weight in ounces per day. The second lifestyle change you want to talk about is exercise. And exercise is widely important for a variety of different reasons. And for those, a lot of Americans struggle with being overweight or obesity. And it's probably because we're not getting a lot of exercise. That could be for a lot of different reasons. That could be the advent of the cellular phone, or, the advent of, apps, DoorDash, things like that make our lives easier. A lot of our society has drifted away from activity. So as a result, you see chronic diseases, diabetes, hypertension, obesity, things like that on the rise. So exercise is vitally important. And when you think about exercise, when I used to go to the gym, I used to be a member of the gym, and I would see people exercise. Exercise is not just one thing. You want to do cardiovascular exercise like walking, running to get your heart rate up. But it's also important to do resistance training as well, like weights. And when I would go to the gym, I would see a lot of people that they may be runners, but then they would never really lift weights or do resistance exercises. Or you may see the people that are, real big and strong, but they never did any cardio. They never walked, they never ran, they never played basketball. So it's not good to just do one. You want to do both. You want to exercise to build up your stamina, such as walking, running, playing tennis, swimming. But then in addition to that, you also want to do resistance training. And resistance training doesn't have to be weights. It can be things like push-ups, sit-ups, squats. You can look up a YouTube video with a 20-minute at-home YouTube video on resistance, and do a lot of body weight, exercises. And resistance training is good. And then you want to develop good muscle tone. And then for people with arthritis, resistance training is good to protect your joints, because it can protect your joints if your muscles around the joints are strong and able to support your weight and able to support certain movements. So exercise is vitally important. And how much exercise should you get? According to the CDC, they recommend you should get about 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise every week. So moderate intensity exercise is like, maybe, like I said, walking briskly. It could be playing a sport. It could be, riding a bike. And, I would try to choose something that is fun. So the reason I say choose something that's fun to exercise is because if it's fun, you're more likely to continue it or participate in it. And it may not seem like exercise. Me personally, I like playing basketball. So if I go play basketball, not only am I getting a good sweat, not only am I losing weight, building my stamina, but I'm actually having fun. So I encourage you to try to find something fun that involves exercising. And I actually have a video. You can check it out on my channel about fun ways to exercise. I list a lot of different things. Like I said, for me, it's playing basketball. For you, it could be something different. It could be riding a bike. It could be walking with a friend. It could be, getting some friends together and playing tag. I know that sounds like something the kids do. You could get some friends together and do like a scavenger hunt. You could play tennis, you could swim. I mean, the list is almost endless. You just want to do something that gets your heart rate up and that gets you a good sweat going. And again, you want to do 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity exercise. But if you're doing more rigorous activity, you could actually bump that down to 75 minutes. So like, let's say you're a runner and you run a lot. If you do 75 minutes of like higher intensity exercise, that's equivalent to doing 150 minutes of the moderate intensity exercise. And it doesn't have to be all at once. Well, obviously, it probably shouldn't be all at once. You could break it up. So let's say you're doing 150 minutes of walking a week. You could walk 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and then have 2 days off. Or you could do 50 minutes, 3 days a week. You can do, whatever works for you. So exercise is very important. And just like with water, if you exercise adequately, you probably won't be constipated because when you exercise, it helps things move through your system. And, do an experiment. If you exercise for a week or two, and many people in our society are constipated. And I'll just talk about that for a minute. Constipation means you're straining or you have difficulty with the bowel movement, or you go less than 3 times a week. So if you're not having a bowel movement every day, you have a bowel movement 3 times or less per week, that is considered constipation. And exercising and drinking water are two surefire ways to relieve constipation. Okay, so exercise is highly important. And the things we're talking about on this channel, the lifestyle changes, these are things you probably heard before, you know. But again, in our society, is drifting more towards an inactive society. Because if you think about it, you could literally stay home and do everything. You could have groceries delivered to your house. You could, do DoorDash and have food delivered to your house. Um, you could even buy a car from your house and have it delivered to your house. So really, in our society, you really don't have to leave the house. A lot of people work at home nowadays. They don't leave the house. So if you do work at home or have an at-home job, that's fine. But, maybe during your lunch break or before or after work, get outside and go for a walk or go for a run or do something to keep you active, because you don't want to, sit around and just be in the house all day. Okay. So we talked about water, we talked about exercise. Now we're going to talk about sleep. So sleep is another lifestyle change that's very important. And if you're not getting enough sleep, your immune system can be compromised. You may feel fatigued. Your body can't, adequately repair itself. So your body needs sleep. So think about, going to work. Let's say you go to work 8 hours a day. So you're at work 8 hours a day, but then the other 16 hours, you're not at work. So think about if you had to work 24 hours a day and you never took a break. You just work, 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 work. You couldn't function that way. And so sleep is the same way. Your body is going, doing all different types of things throughout the day. So at some point you have to take a break to rest, to sleep, and rejuvenate. Okay. So with sleep, like I said, it does a lot of different things. And how much sleep should you get? It varies from person to person. So the general recommendation for most adults is about 7 to 8 hours. Now, there are some people who can get maybe 5 hours of sleep and still function at a high level. But for most people, you're going to need about 8 hours of sleep. And I know many people I talk to in the pharmacy or just throughout life aren't getting a good sleep, you know. And there's some people I know they may sleep 6, 7 hours a night or 8 hours a night, and then they wake up tired. And so, how do you get a good night's sleep? One way to get a good night's sleep is to practice sleep hygiene. So, what is sleep hygiene? Sleep hygiene refers to things that we can do to help improve our sleep at night. One thing you can do to improve your sleep is only use your bed for sleep. You know, a lot of us, we may watch TV in the bed. We may, be on our phones in the bed. You know, you may play games in the bed. You may do all type of things in the bed. So then when it's time to go to sleep, your body doesn't realize it's time to go to sleep because you're doing all these other activities in the bed. But if you only use your bed for sleep, you're letting your body know, hey, I got in the bed. It's time to wind down. Let's go to sleep. Another thing you can do as far as sleep hygiene is to take a warm shower or a bath probably within a couple hours of going to sleep. Taking a warm shower, actually, this is kind of ironic, but it actually cools you down. So when you go to sleep, you want your body temperature to drop. So taking a warm shower or a warm bath, probably a couple hours before going to bed, has been shown to help you sleep better at night. All right. And another thing you can do is you don't want to eat like a large meal late at night. You know, some people can get like what's called acid reflux or what's called GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. And with that, you can have reflux symptoms at night. So if you're eating big meals late at night, that can cause GERD or heartburn. So you want to eat at least 2 to 3 hours before going to bed. All right. So another thing we can do to improve our sleep is to have a bedtime routine. And this is probably one of the most important things. So like, let's say, for example, you go to bed at 10 o'clock every night. Maybe at like 9:30, you maybe want to start your bedtime routine. Your bedtime routine can be listening to soothing music. It can be taking a shower or bath, as I just recommended. You may pray or meditate, but you want to have a bedtime routine and you kind of want to do the same thing every night and try to go to bed and wake up around the same time every night if possible. So if you work during the week, let's say you work a traditional 9 to 5, even on the weekends, you may sleep a little bit later, go to bed a little bit later than normal, but try to wake up and go to bed around the same time, even if you're not going to work. All right. And then for those of you that have a, more non-traditional work schedule, try to go to bed and wake up as much as you can, the best as possible. All right. So sleep. So again, we talked about water, exercise, sleep. And now we're going to talk about eating a good diet. So eating a good diet can help a lot of different things. And no matter what type of chronic disease or illness you have, eating a good, clean diet is only going to help. So if you have a cold, if you have the flu, if you have diabetes, if you've had asthma, if you've had allergies, whatever, eating good food is going to help your situation. And so when you eat food, you've heard this before from your mom, your dad, your grandma, you want to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. And it's recommended that there was a study, the EPIC study, and it showed that most people should eat about 3 to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. I'm sorry, they should eat 3 to 5 servings of vegetables per day. And fruit is very important too. And the thing about fruits and vegetables, they have a lot of, you get a lot of bang for your buck. They have a lot of vitamins, they have a lot of minerals, they have a lot of fiber, and they don't have a lot of calories. So if you think about non-healthy foods, a lot of non-healthy foods have a lot of calories, but they don't have a lot of nutrients. They're not nutrient dense. So when you eat food, you want to eat food with the smallest amount of calories, but the biggest amount of nutrients. And nutrients are things like vitamins, vitamin A, B, C, D, E, K, minerals like iron, calcium, those type of things. And You hear things in the news about you need this vitamin, you need that vitamin, but you want to eat a wide variety of foods. So if you're eating fruits and vegetables, you don't want to just eat oranges all day. Oranges are good. They have vitamin C, and a lot of health benefits, but different types of fruit and different types of vegetables have certain nutrients that others may not have. So you don't want to eat all citrus fruits like oranges. You want to eat berries. You want to eat, right now it's the summer, watermelons are good. And with watermelons, and if possible, you want to eat fruits that's seasonal. Like right now, it's hot in the summertime, in America, and watermelons are common because they're very hydrating. I think they're about 90% water. So if you're outside, in the sun and sweating, watermelon is a good refreshing fruit. It can quench your thirst and quench your hunger as well. So you want to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables on a daily basis. So just summarizing, again, we've covered drinking water, exercise, sleep, and fruits and vegetables. Now we're going to talk about sun exposure. Sun exposure is important, and sun exposure is actually going to segue into the next topic of skincare. Because sun exposure is important, and there's been some talk about um, sunscreen and things like that. And there's a question in here. Sorry, I didn't see it. Should you take a multivitamin just in case you are not eating the foods that have all the nutrients you need? Should you take a multivitamin? You can take a multivitamin. The thing about multivitamins is that it's better to get your nutrients from food because they're better absorbed. So when you eat food, you're getting the entire vitamin. Whereas if you get a vitamin that's a multivitamin, you're only getting part of the vitamin. So as a result, again, when you eat nutrients from foods, your body absorbs them better. But it's very hard to get all your nutrients from food. So when you take a vitamin, take it with the understanding that I'm trying to get all my nutrients from food. This multivitamin is just filling in the gaps. Don't look at a multivitamin like, okay, I'm going to take this multivitamin and it's going to solve all my problems. I'm never going to get sick. I'm never going to have to go to the doctor. You still want to eat a good diet, exercise, and then you can take a multivitamin. But again, don't look at the multivitamin as your only source of, your only basis of getting your vitamins. Okay. So let's go back to sun exposure. So sun exposure is important. And we're going to talk about sun exposure, and we're going to talk about using sunscreen because people have asked me, should I use sunscreen? Should I not use sunscreen? What should I do about that? So sun exposure is very important, and you want to get some sun exposure. But again, with anything when it comes to health, your body has something called homeostasis. And homeostasis is like the proper balance of different things in the body. The body has to have the proper amount of calcium, the proper amount of water, the proper amount of sodium. Too much or too little of anything is not good. So as it relates to sun exposure, you want some sun exposure, but not too much. Sun exposure is vital for health. Sun exposure can actually improve your mood. Um, I heard something that or read something that when you wake up in the morning and you see the sun, it does something to release cortisol, which helps regulate your sleep cycle. So it increases cortisol, but then decreases melatonin. Um, I had a patient one time, and she was on an antidepressant, and, the guidelines have changed now, but back then they were different. And generally back then, I think most people just took one antidepressant at a time. But now, you see patients on 2 or 3 of the same or different antidepressants at a time. And she was on one antidepressant, and then at one point she was on 2. And I questioned this. I'm like, why are you on 2 antidepressants? And with her situation, she lived in Alaska during like the winter months of the year, but then she lived on the East Coast during another time of the year. And so when she lived in Alaska, in Alaska, they have like an overcast most of the day. So the sun, they don't really get a lot of sun exposure. So when she lived in Alaska and there was no sun, she actually had to take two antidepressants to combat her depression. But when she was in the East Coast and there was more sun, she only had to take one antidepressant. So that lets you know the power of being exposed to the sun. So the sun is very important. Like I said, it can help our mood. It can also help us get enough vitamin D. And vitamin D is very important. It helps our body absorb calcium. It helps our body absorb phosphorus. It helps with our musculoskeletal systems. It helps with our immune system. It does a lot of good things from the body. And some foods have vitamin D, but it's not, very, very present in a lot of foods. It is in some, like certain mushrooms have foods, and certain other foods have vitamin D. Um, so you want to have good sun exposure to get the vitamin D. And to get enough vitamin D, you generally don't need a lot of sun exposure, maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes a day for most people. So it's important for that as well. And I'm trying to think what else is sun exposure good for. Vitamin D, mood. Um, so now let's talk about sunscreen. Should you wear sunscreen? Um, I would say it depends. If you're outside just for a few minutes a day, like let's say you work indoors, you work at home, and you just go outside for like 20, 30 minutes a day just to get some sun, then in that situation, you probably don't need sunscreen. But like let's say you're going to an amusement park and you're directly in the sun, you're going to be there for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, or let's say you're going to the beach and you're in direct sunlight, then I would probably recommend getting wearing sunscreens. And according to the American Academy of Dermatology, they recommend a broad-based sunscreen with UVA and with UVB protection that's water resistant and it's SPF 30 or higher. So why do I say you should use sunscreen? Um, the sun is considered a carcinogen. So a carcinogen is something that can cause cancer. So if you think about carcinogens, alcohol can be a carcinogen. Cigarettes can be a carcinogen because they can cause lung cancer. Asbestos can be a carcinogen. It can cause mesothelioma. So a carcinogen is anything that can cause cancer. And the sun is listed as a carcinogen. So too much sun exposure is not good. And as I said, your body has something called homeostasis. So you want some sun exposure, but you don't want too much sun exposure. Like I heard something the other day. I think it was with Bill Gates. He's coming up with some technology to block the sun. That is, I don't know about that. That's, I don't know your political views but if you think about, the way God made the earth, blocking the sun, sun is vital for all life. So, blocking the sun is a little extreme. The only blocking of the sun I would do is with sunblock, but I do think you should wear sunblock if you're like going to the beach or if you're going to like an amusement park, again, SPF 30 or higher, and you want to reapply it every 2 hours. So like, let's say you're at an amusement park for 8 hours, you want to apply that sunscreen 4 times throughout those 8 hours, every 2 hours. And you want to ideally put it on 30 minutes prior to being exposed to the sun. And the next topic we're going to go into is skincare. So in the poll I posted on my channel, someone listed that they wanted me to talk about skincare. And again, your skin is the largest organ in the body, and it makes up I think it's about 15% of your body weight. So with using sunscreen, that can be part of a good skincare routine. The sun releases UVA rays, which cause aging, and UVB rays, which cause burning. So if you wear sunscreen properly and regularly, it can prevent a lot of damage to the skin from the sun. So wearing sunscreen can be part of a good skincare routine. Another thing you can do as part of a good skincare routine is to wash your face regularly. A good idea is to maybe wash your face maybe morning and night with a good mild, gentle moisturizer. Um, and it's good to moisturize your skin probably after a bath or shower. That's when your skin is moist, supple, and flexible. So maybe if you take a bath at night, we talked about a bedtime routine. That can be part of your bedtime routine. Take a bath or a shower, and then after your bath or shower, use a good gentle blend moisturizer like Vaseline. I did a video on Vaseline. You can check that out as well. And we talk about some of the benefits of that as well. Um, Also, as part of a good skincare routine is eating a good diet. And we mentioned that earlier. Fruits and vegetables are chopped with vitamins and minerals, which can help promote healthy skin. And one thing I do want to talk about with the skin is melanoma. Melanoma is a type of skin cancer. And even with African Americans are prone to get melanoma. So if you have any type of growths or moles on your face, your skin, you want to keep an eye on them. And you want to understand the ABCs of growths or moles on your skin. The ABCs are the A stands for asymmetry. And if you remember from math, if something is symmetrical, that means it's the same on one side as it is on the other. So if you have a mole or a growth on your skin and one side is rounded and one side is square, then that should raise an eyebrow. You may want to see your doctor to have it assessed and tested to make sure it's not something, cancerous or malignant. The B in the ABC stands for a border. So you want to look at the border of the growth on the skin, and if the border is abnormal or irregular shape, this should raise the eyebrow as well. Hold on one second. I'm just pulling something up on my computer. Okay, and then the C stands for color. If you have variations in color of a mole or growth, such as just black, brown, red, or blue, or abnormal color, you probably want to see your doctor as well, as this could be the sign of something, potentially cancerous or malignant. All right. Sorry, I lost my link. Trying to pull my link back up. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I had clicked on the wrong tab and I had lost the link. All right. So we talked about lifestyle changes so far. We talked about skincare. Now we're going to talk about seasonal allergies. Someone posted on the community post saying they want to know about seasonal allergies. So let's talk about before we talk about seasonal allergies, let's talk about allergies in general. So many of us may have different types of allergies. You may have an allergy to a medication. You may have an allergy to latex. You may have an allergy to bee venom, to peanuts, to a lot of different things. And so what is an allergy? An allergy is your body sees something that is harmless or innocuous as harmful. So with your immune system, it's designed to recognize things that are harmful to the body, like bacteria, viruses, fungi, things like that. And when it sees those things, your immune system attacks them and tries to get rid of them from the body. So with an allergy, your body sees something that's not harmful as harmful. And so with the seasons changing, in America it's spring and summertime. So trees are blooming and, you're getting a lot of pollen and people's allergies are increasing. And so what can you do about treating these allergies? And so with pollen, it's very common. A lot of people, I don't know the specific numbers, but a lot of people in America have seasonal allergies. And again, with the season changing, trees blooming. I was riding down the street the other day, and I looked at the curb in the neighborhood where I live, and there was literally like just huge mounds of yellow pollen on the sidewalk. And when I come in the pharmacy, I'm like, it's no wonder people are sneezing and coughing and doing all these type of things. And so with pollen is like a yellow powdery substance that plants need, and it helps them reproduce. And a lot of people are allergic to pollen. And so with pollen, when you breathe it in, your body sees pollen as a harmful invader. So you may get itchy eyes, you may get watery eyes, you may get sneezing, you may get coughing, you may get runny nose, because your body is trying to rid itself of the pollen. So again, we talked about some lifestyle changes. What are lifestyle changes that you can do to help combat seasonal allergies? Number one, if you have seasonal allergies, one of the most obvious things you can do is look at the weather. So a lot of times they'll have like a pollen index or pollen count. So check the weather for the next day, the day before. And if you see that pollen counts are going to be high that day, if possible, try to stay inside rather than going outside. If you have errands to run, try to run those errands on a day when pollen counts are lower. Now, if pollen counts are high and you have to be outside, take measures to reduce your exposure to the pollen. Number one, when you go outside, wear sunglasses, because if you have sunglasses, that's protecting pollen from getting in your eyes. Number two is wear a hat. Wearing a hat can prevent, the pollen from getting in your hair, in your body. And then in some cases, some people, may need to wear a mask. I had a friend, and, he was like allergic to grass. So when he cut grass, he'd have to wear a mask so that the grass blades and things wouldn't get in his nose, or he would have like a mild allergic reaction. So depending on your exposure level, you may need to do one or more of these. Another thing you can do when you're going outside and coming inside and you have allergies, you don't want to sleep in the clothes that you had on. So let's say today is Saturday, you have to run some errands, you're running errands throughout the day. When you get home, take your clothes off, take a shower, put those clothes in the dirty clothes, wash them, and don't sleep in them. If you come home, you don't take a shower, and you sleep in the same clothes you were out in, you're getting that pollen and those allergens in your bed, and you're kind of just like sleeping in like a pollen infested bed. So you may have sneezing and itching and watery nose throughout the night. So do some of these lifestyle changes to combat your exposure to various allergies. So everything I'm giving you, you're doing things to avoid exposure to whatever it is you're allergic to. And one thing I didn't mention, a lot of people are allergic to pollen, but you can also have what are called perennial allergies, in which you're allergic to things you're exposed to year round. This could be like pet dander if you have pets. It could be mold in your house. It could be a lot of other things. And the only way to really know what you're allergic to is to see an allergist, and they can do like a skin test or a blood test, and they can tell you exactly what you're allergic to. So if you try some of the lifestyle changes and they work to some degree, but haven't worked to the degree you want, then you can jump to the over-the-counter medicines. And with the over-the-counter medicines for allergies, they're very effective. And now when I first got into pharmacy, there were only a handful of over-the-counter medicines for allergies. And now there are tons of them. A lot of the prescription medicines that were once prescription are now over-the-counter. So if you have allergy symptoms and you want to take an over-the-counter medicine, I would start with the antihistamine. So if you break the word down, antihistamine, anti means against, and histamine is a molecule that's part of your immune system that's released to when you are allergic to something. Histamine is released from mast cells, and it causes some of the allergy symptoms we talk about, like itchy, watery eyes, runny nose, things like that. So an antihistamine is a medicine used to block the effects of histamine. So these are medicines like Claritin or Loratadine, Allegra or Fexofenadine. A lot of you have heard of Benadryl or diphenhydramine. It's also used in a sleep aid like Advil PM and Tylenol PM. They also have some nasal sprays and eye drops that are antihistamine, but I would probably start with the tablet antihistamine, like again, Claritin or Allegra if you want something during the day. But if you want something to make you drowsy, you can do something like Xyzal, Zyrtec, or Benadryl because they cause drowsiness. And with antihistamines, they generally work fairly quickly. They'll work probably within like 30 minutes to an hour to kind of help combat your allergy symptoms. And they're good if you have like mild or intermittent symptoms. Now, if your symptoms are more severe or persistent, you want to use what's called an intranasal steroid. And an intranasal steroid is something like Flonase or fluticasone, which was once a prescription, Nasonex or mometasone, triamcinolone or Nasacort. You want to use one of those type of things. You can actually use those in addition to the antihistamine. You can use like Claritin, and then you can use Flonase on top of that. And then in addition to the intranasal steroids, they also have various other things like eye drops, like Patanol, Zatador. Let's say you just have symptoms in your eyes, you just have itchy or watery eyes. You can just take an eye drop to help combat those symptoms. All right. Okay, so that is seasonal allergies in a nutshell. And if you have any questions about allergies, I have a couple videos out there where we talk about allergies. So just check those out as well. Or let me know in some of my comments if you have any questions. I'll be happy to do another video on that, which I may do another video as well to kind of go into more depth about allergies and how to treat them. So again, those are lifestyle changes of over-the-counter medicines. Oh, and one thing I didn't mention to help combat allergies is taking a vacation. Taking a vacation. So if you live in an area that maybe has a higher pollen count than other areas, maybe try taking a vacation certain times of year when the pollen counts are higher to an area with lower pollen counts. And this could help improve your allergy symptoms as well. But other than that, I think that's about it. I think we covered everything that I wanted to go over in the live. We talked about lifestyle changes, drinking water, exercising, sleep, fruits and vegetables, sun exposure. We talked about skincare. Your skin is the largest organ in the body. We talked about wearing sunscreen. We talked about washing your face regularly, using a moisturizer, eating fruits and vegetables. We talked about seasonal allergies. We talked about lifestyle changes to combat seasonal allergies, wearing a hat, wearing sunglasses, taking a shower. We talked about some medicines you can take, antihistamines, intranasal steroids, eye drops. So I think we covered everything. Does anyone else have a question about anything? Are we going to start doing lives like this one? It's up to you. If you guys want lives, I'll give you lives. If y'all want long form videos or short form videos, I'll be happy to do that as well. But yeah, we'll definitely do some more lives. This was the first live, so thank you guys, everyone who attended. You know, I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me, and we'll just keep growing and you know, building from here. You know, hopefully down the road we'll be able to do some live events, you know. But you know, as the channel grows, as you know, we get more involved, you know, we will look into doing that. But if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a like out there. And again, on my channel, we focus on lifestyle changes and over-the-counter medicines that you can take to combat your everyday conditions. But if you have questions about prescriptions, again, I am a pharmacist. I'll be happy to answer those as well. All right. Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you, Miss Cook. I see Miss Katrina Cook. Thank you. This was great. I appreciate that comment. You know, hope you learned something. You know I definitely did. You know, and I like doing things like this because it kind of keeps me in the loop of things, and keeps me up to date on new information that's coming out. So I definitely enjoy it. All right. Well, I think that's it. Thank you guys again. Until next time, this is Brandon E., your Pharm.D. Remember to drink water and hope this video helped.